Welcome to the video series that goes along with my 6-week Math Prep Workbook. I'm Mandy Balster and I developed this workbook for students to use as they're getting ready for the ACT. We'll start off each week with a video like this, giving you a few things to think about as you begin your preparation and start using the workbook. So we'll start each video session with some warm-up questions or math topic reminders, and today I've got a question for you about triangles and the sum of their angles. So what do angles of a triangle sum up to? Remember that a triangle is a three-sided figure, and that also means it has three angles. So what do those three angles of a triangle sum to? You should have gotten 180. What about a quadrilateral? What do the angles of a quadrilateral sum to? And again, think about a quadrilateral. That's a four-sided figure, which means it has four angles as well. So let's sum up those four angles of a quadrilateral, and what do you get? 360. So these two things, these numbers, these measures of these internal angles, you need to keep in mind. But in general, we have an equation, n minus 2 times 180, where n is the number of sides in a polygon. We can use this formula for any n-sided figure to calculate the sum of the angles inside that figure. So this is a good formula to keep in mind, as well as just remembering the 180 for a triangle and the 360 for a quadrilateral. So what does the math section of the ACT look like? If you've taken the test before, you may be familiar with this. But here's a little review. There are 60 questions on the math section, and you have 60 minutes. So we have to answer the questions correctly, but we also have to do it within a certain time period. So we're going to focus on being able to answer the questions and do that in a timely manner. Each question is multiple choice, and you have 5 choices to choose from. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to make the best choice, maybe when you're not so sure what the answer is. And the math topics that are covered come from classes from your pre-algebra, geometry, algebra 1 and algebra 2, and that does also include trigonometry within there. So if we look at how ACT has categorized their questions, they have 6 main categories. One thing to point out from this, if you'll notice by the teal blue color, that's almost 50% of your test. It is covered by the Integrating Essential Skills category, and these are skills that you learned prior to 8th grade. You were mostly presented those prior to 8th grade. So that being almost half the test, it usually ranges 40 to 42% of the questions come from this area. That's a huge area. If we can focus on some of those basic skills, which also will apply into some of the more challenging questions, that can be a big help for you. We also, of course, want to look at the other categories as well. This is how the questions are usually broken up on the test. So here's my recommendation as we get started. I suggest you put work in now. We want to work practice questions, practice tests. That's so important. The more that we can work, it's going to play a key role in increasing your performance on the test. So if you'll work hard now, work consistently, and that's why we suggest starting 6 to 8 weeks out from your test date, and we worked each day consistently on getting our skills better. You're going to get your brain up to speed for taking a test like this. You know, the ACT is a long test. It is challenging and it can be tiring, so we want to work these questions every day, improve our problem-solving abilities, and by working through more and more questions, you're going to have more confidence to be able to answer these questions correctly. So how is the workbook set up? This is how we're going to get you ready for the ACT. Our basic skills, we're going to review those. We include that as part of our 5-a-days, and these are mostly from those integrating essential skills type questions. These are things you learned prior to 8th grade. We're going to get you brushed up on this, review these skills, and get you to where you know these things so well you almost don't even have to think about how you're going to do the calculation. Then we're going to go over some tips and strategies. Now these are not cheats. I don't like to use that word at all. They're ways that you can work efficiently. It's going to be different for everyone. So we're going to present some tips, some different ways that you can work things. Some things don't work for you, and it's best to determine that in this preparation period instead of while you're sitting there working on the test. So we'll have time to practice some of those things. We're also going to go over our blitz questions, and these are ACT type questions that are going to help you get familiar with how ACT presents their questions and also the topics and the content that are included in those questions. And then later on in our time together, we'll begin to really focus on working up our timing constraints that we have. We're also going to go over keywords. This is like math vocabulary. There are words that show up in our questions that are related to math topics, and we have to know those definitions. They may play an important part in even just setting the question up to determine how you can work the question itself. We're going to go over some specific topics. We have a pretty good idea of the scope of the test as defined by ACT. We have practice tests that they've put out, released actual tests, and we've looked at those tests, we've reviewed, we know what topics they generally ask. We've also included some challenge questions. It's good to struggle. This is how we learn. We think outside the box, and it's going to help everyone get to that next level and see how to work through a problem that maybe isn't so easy at the beginning, but we work through and determine how to tackle these type of problems. We're also going to recommend that you take full-length practice tests along the way. At a minimum, we want you to do a practice test here at the beginning when you're beginning to start working on week 1. And you'll read a little bit about that in the workbook. We're going to also talk about doing one at the end of week 3 and also at the end of week 5. We want you to work this in simulated test environments with the 60 minutes, no one bothering you. If you can get in a quiet spot, it's getting ready for that full test that you're going to be taking. Okay, so if you're watching this video, you may have just happened upon it and aren't sure exactly what workbook I'm even talking about. You can grab a copy of one of these workbooks and work along. We have 5 days of activities for each week that you're going to work. And these intro videos just kind of get you prepared as you begin each week. You can get a digital version or order a paperback version on Amazon, and you'll be ready to get started. And you can see the description for some more details on where to get these versions, and also we've got a video clip at the end of this video. So it's time to get started now. Here's a few thoughts I want to leave with you as you begin working on week 1. I want you to develop good habits as you're working through this workbook. Establish new ones or practice existing ones that you'll use throughout your academic career, not just during the ACT. And this will be a lifelong learning tool for you to have. As you're preparing, I want you to practice until you can't get it wrong. Know your math skills and these that we often see on the test we're going to present to you. These questions then won't surprise you when you're sitting there on the ACT. Use your prep time to try hard things. Let's stretch our minds. If you never go out of your comfort zone and only work questions that are always easy for you, then you aren't building up new skills. We want to be adding to our tool belt of knowledge every single day, and that's not just in math. If you set a goal, stick with it, and work on it consistently, you're setting yourself up for success and developing a process that will benefit you in life and for anything you set forth as a goal. Learn this process and practice it now, and you'll be able to use it on anything that you set forth to accomplish. These are some things I want you to think about as you're getting ready to start week 1 of math prep for the ACT. You've got 5 days of activities each week in the workbook. So it's time to get started, and we'll talk again before you begin week 2. To get your own copy of the 6-week Math Prep Workbook, visit my website, teachmathwithme.com. Click on the link for the 6-week Math Prep Workbook. You can grab a free sample to try it out. Scroll down and click on the button, Download Free Sample. Give me your email address and I'll send it on over to you. If you're ready to go ahead and get a paperback version, you can get the workbook from Amazon in a traditional workbook form with a glossy cover. It will be mailed to you by Amazon. You can also get a Kindle version from Amazon, but you won't be able to print this one out. To download and print your own copy of the workbook, back on my website, go to the Resources tab, and that will take you to my Teachers Pay Teacher store. With this version, you can print a copy out on a personal printer or send it to a print shop. I like to specify spiral bound for my local printer. Get this version here. You can find all these links, a free sample, and more info at my website, teachmathwithme.com. Look for all the links you need in the description as well.